The Marshal King. I have been excited to talk about this story. It's new, it's refreshing, it's interesting, it's got some weird and wacky combination of ideas and splitting of genres, but then it also has pedigree behind it. A long-running talent in this industry that arguably has some of the best artwork. You know this person, and this is their brand new story. Does the name Boichi ring a bell? If it does, great news, because you're going to hear a lot about him. If it doesn't, let me tell you, Boichi is considered one of the best artists in the industry, alongside a plethora of others, but for good reason. He has a very distinct style for ultra-realism. His anatomy work, his detail, his science or technological work is so sophisticated and specific and highly detailed that it's almost impossible to compete with him. This is a person that has a long-running list of stories, both as an author and artist. Almost 30 plus different manga he has worked on, and around about 10 different manhwa from his earlier days. So Boichi is a Korean manhwa artist turned professional manga artist. It's very difficult to find what some of his earlier works look like, but if I can, I will show you. This is where his art is relatively simplified, pretty standard, but still nice to look at. Over the years, however, he would hone his craft, something he is meticulous at doing. One scroll through Twitter and you will see how much he is constantly pushing his understanding and knowledge towards any subject he finds interesting, the idea of Marshal King included. Fun fact about Boichi, since his childhood, he has always wanted to be a manga artist. So from his earliest days, he would constantly draw and even attended a technical college or school for science and technology, not to learn anything or to pursue a career in that subsection, but to learn how to draw the stuff that he wants to such a technical level. That is super commitment. Over the 30 odd manga that he's worked on, you can really see his style evolve and mellow out and change depending on not only the type of story that he's working on, but also the amount of time that he gets to work on it. A lot of you might know his most popular work, the one that arguably put him on the map, Sunken Rock. This is peak anatomy, albeit exaggerated in certain departments purposefully. The design philosophy surrounding Sunken Rock is gorgeous. Artistically, it is a fantastic story. Narratively, I wouldn't say it's his strongest work, but it's interesting, it's engaging, and it really put him on the radar. I would say this is what made people aware of his style of characters, this level of realism and ultra high fidelity and detail to the specifics of anatomy. What people didn't really know yet is that he can take this a step further. So you're kind of limited to body anatomy. Where you aren't is technology and science. So this is a story called Origin. It came out a couple of years after Sunken Rock, and this is mixing that high level of anatomy knowledge with such a unique and creative twist for science and technology, merging the two together, a cyborg or an android. I would say that there's not many authors that could pull this off successfully, and even less authors that could pull this off on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly schedule. Even thinking about drawing this as a regular thing sounds like a nightmare. But if you were to take one thing away from this in regards to Boichi, the man works hard. He is a definitive hard worker. His most mainstream, most successful, probably his most popular work on a global scale is Dr. Stone. He paired up with an incredible author and they managed to create a super unique story. Different for Boichi artistically, as you can tell that he has changed his style to reach a weekly format schedule. A lot of his stories tend to be monthly because of the level of detail that he is producing. So seeing this style kind of morph this way was a unique thing. While the story of Dr. Stone is nowhere near the park of what Boichi's known for, he still very much made it his own, taking all of the elements of this story that has barely any technology at the beginning that slowly increases over time and mashing those things together with less anatomy detail. It worked wonderfully. You mix that with a compelling story and you have the keys to success. And lastly, another one I should point out is the One Piece novel that he done. So he was the artist for One Piece Episode A, I believe, which is the Ace novels, and just artistically, obviously gorgeous. Beautiful depictions of these characters. And while it's definitely not One Piece, that was never the point. He was chosen for a reason to draw this in a very beautiful and heartbreaking way, and Ace's character and everyone else looks phenomenal. I like Boichi. I think he has a lot of charisma, a lot of energy, a lot of style and substance that he can give artistically. He's really creative with his ideas. The only problem that I have personally with his works is when he writes them. I say this with the utmost respect to him, but his works are very standard. They're nowhere near the intricacies of his artwork, and that can be perfectly okay. Some works are definitely better than others. They feel more well-rounded and researched and understood. But a lot of the times he falls into a very common trope where he over-explains and over-details things and really holds your hand as a reader. And I've never really understood on if he does this purposefully as kind of a gimmick for all of his stories, or if this is just the inexperience of the writing that he has. While it can be frustrating to read a story that constantly iterates everything to you like you are a child, it's not the worst thing. There can be much, much bigger issues at play. Honestly, what really helps is his artwork. It's so beautiful to look at that you're kind of just there for the experience and the vibes. This takes me to his brand new steampunk western manga called The Marshal King. I like the idea of the Marshal King, taking the technical aspect of sci-fi and technology and this hidden mystery surrounding it, joining it with a western, cowboys, outlaws, primeval type beat. Absolutely fantastic. It's an odd combination, but it works really, really well. An interesting thing is that his style for the Marshal King is an evolution of Dr. Stone, so it is a weekly story, but it seems like he's able to take breaks more often. Sometimes bi-weekly, you might get 2 chapters and a 2-week break. It is consistently releasing. I'm just not sure on the schedule so far. It might just be a bi-weekly manga, but still impressively drawn. Not the high-level detail of Sun Can Rock or Origin, but definitely a more evolved version from Dr. Stone. This is his playground. Beautifully drawn guns and characters and sci-fi elements that just mix all of the best of his artistry together. Narratively, it does 2 things. One, it provides this sense of, wow, I've never read anything like this before. It's really interesting. But the other is, wow, he really feels the need to explain every single aspect to me. Again, this is the weakest link for Boichi, but when it comes to his other works that follow a similar line, he does tend to pick up motion after the introduction. When he's not explaining stuff, when he's getting into action, when he's allowing the story to kind of flow and roll naturally, it operates smoothly. And I think the Marshal King will have that past its opening. It's just jumping and getting through all the hurdles currently. And when you have a concept that comes across relatively unique, you might lean a bit too heavily into over-explaining, so it might take a little bit longer. Do not let this worry you though. The Marshal King is a fun read so far, and it channels a lot of shonen energy. And you're probably thinking, shonen, cowboys, guns, steampunk, like what does that even look like? The Marshal King is about a young guy called Jimmy Godspeed. And the thing about Jim is he is related to one of the most famous outlaws this country has ever seen. Turns out that outlaw is dead. And whatever rumored relationship that old Jimbo has with this person has now put him on a bit of a radar, both good and bad. You see, Jimmy also wants to be a marshal. He wants to wipe out the era of desperados and outlaws and to kind of rein in the Wild West. And a way that he does this is by joining a martial school. What is their weaponry, you ask? Well, of course, guns, pistols, old revolvers, the typical Western armory that you would expect. The difference is that it is shonified, so it's very over the top. This person might be able to shoot 5 or 6 bullets in 1 second. This person might have pinpoint accuracy from like 100 miles away or something. Very over the top, very playful. But this is where the steampunk elements come in. See, underneath a lot of these places and big crevices is this lost technological science facilities, and no one really knows what it is. Perhaps is a lost city of a bygone era. What we do understand is that within here are certain super magnums. There are these massive magnum revolvers that are like god tier weapons, but not just anybody can wield them. If the general public were to wield them, it would obliterate them. Supposedly, there is a couple of them, and old Jimbo wants to wield one of these super magnums, but the only way that he can do it is by attaching these mechanical robotic arms, and they are the coolest, edgiest, craziest looking steampunk western thing that you could get, with him wielding a crazy big gun. If this does not sound like it's up your alley, if it doesn't sound interesting, that's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. It's not for you. But if by any means any of this has sound exciting, you will love this story. While a bit rough around the edges narratively, I do think it will smooth out over time, and it truly does have a ton to offer. I think it's fun, and realistically, that's all that matters, right?